Hey, Crystal.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Goodness.
Hello, everyone. We have people jumping in and joining, so we'll go ahead and give everyone a chance to hop on. It's very nice for you to be here with us today. Right now, just so you are sure you are in the right session, this is the Home Visitor Safety Panel. And so we will get started in a little bit. Give us just 1 second or two. Okay, so I want to be aware of the time. So my name is Alyssa Nava. I am an employee at DECA, and I am going to be the moderator for this session. So we definitely want to thank you for joining us today for the Home Visitor Safety Panel. I will introduce our speaker soon, but first, just a couple of reminders. So the session is being recorded and will be available on the conference platform 1 hour after the session ends. We want to hear from you in the chat, so feel free to ask any questions or comment in the chat box on the conference platform. So the page you went to that you had to click to get to this Zoom, there is a chat box option there. I will be keeping an eye on it. That's where we want to encourage you to put any comments or questions you have. So that will be important mainly because that chat feature is what will be recorded and paired with this video. Any comments that end up in this Zoom room chat won't be saved. But of course, I will be looking at both of them. So hopefully everyone's questions will get answered. And just one last reminder, please keep yourself muted unless presenters ask otherwise, which from talking with our 2 presenters here today, I think that they will be asking for some great participation. So I'm going to go ahead and start by introducing our first speaker, Cami Braden. Cami has been a certified parent educator for 29 years and program coordinator for 17 years with Keystone Parents as teachers. Cami has an extensive background in training, including ASQ3 and ASQ-SE, basic home visitation, PAT quality standards, fitness and nutrition of young children, and prenatal exposures to neurotoxins. Cami served as chair on the Douglas County Success by 6 Board of Directors and the Kansas Parents as Teachers Association Board of Directors as vice president and president. Cami is a lifelong Lawrence resident, born and raised in Lawrence. She graduated from Lawrence High School and has a degree in human development and family life from the University of Kansas. Cami and her husband, Scott, have 2 sons and are proud grandparents to 4 grandchildren. She is also an active Boy Scout leader. So Cami, we're very excited to have you with us, and we'll go ahead and I will be here in the background for any help, but it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I do have 1 granddaughter here today, so you might hear a little bit in the background, hopefully not too loud. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, your audio sounds great.
Great. Okay. I am also, along with working with parents as teachers for Keystone Learning Services, I'm also a basic home visitation trainer with the Kansas Head Start Association. And the information I'm going to present and start off with before we ask you all for your questions comes from our basic home visitation training through the Kansas Head Start Association. One of the key driving forces behind providing home visitor training and this basic home visitation training was the need to talk about how to be safe in our work. When we go into people's homes, we certainly take on a different risk level. So instances of injury and death in home visiting situations in Kansas in the past decade really have come in the forefront. So that's how this training started, and a good crux of the basic home visitation training is around safety. One of the things that we've just recently added to this training is the subject of public health safety and home visits. It's important for home visitors to not contribute to the spread of infectious illnesses. So I think we probably talked a lot about this in the last 2 years with COVID. And we know now that this is also important, even if we do move beyond COVID with all illnesses. So here's some precautions to prevent the spread of viruses. You want to pre-screen your families and yourself for illnesses prior to going to the visit. So I guess we do have a poll. Do we want to go ahead and launch that, Alyssa?
Yes, so the poll, you can find it in the platform page. It's not going to show up on your Zoom, but you can go ahead and see it is on the page under polls tab next to the chat. And it says, there's 2 different polls here, Cami.
Oh, the pre-screen, it might be the second poll.
Okay, do you pre-screen families for illness prior to the visit? You can go ahead and vote in that polls tab, or feel free to also add your comments in the chat.
Great, thank you. And so this was something that was very new to us until COVID, and we found that we really needed to be finding out if we're going to be exposing ourselves or others to illnesses in the home. And with this pre-screening, has really helped us to eliminate our exposure. So if a family answers yes to any of the screening questions, and I'll show you that screening here in just a bit, what we do is then we reschedule or we switch to a virtual visit. So if your agency allows for virtual visits, that's a really great option. Of course, you want to use hand sanitizer, and we instruct our staff immediately before and immediately after the visit. Then you get back in your car, and I'm really bad at that. I start blowing my nose as soon as I get in the car, or I might start eating my lunch. I definitely do that, eat my lunch in the car. And so we've really retrained ourselves that we try not to touch our face while we're en route from the visit to your office or wherever you're going next. And then as soon as you can, wash your hands as soon as possible and wash them frequently. We all know these things, but I think sometimes we forget. So it's a good reminder. Remember to cover your mouth and your nose with your sleeve if you cough or sneeze. And these are all good basic things. The other thing, I thought I had that slide. I'm sure I have that slide somewhere. If not, I've uploaded the pre-screening into the file, so you can look there. Some other precautions to prevent the spread of viruses is limit the number of items you take into the home. We used to take this whole bag full of toys. We don't do that at all anymore. We go in there with very limited materials and hardly any toys at all. But if you do go in with things, you want to sanitize all those items before and after the visit. And then when you're there, you want to sit in a well-ventilated area with at least a 6-foot distance, if you can do that. Now, we know in homes that's not always possible, but try to sit as far back as you can. We've also switched a good many of our visits to outdoors. And of course, outdoors is the best to prevent the spread of viruses. And we, at one point in time, I don't think most of my staff are doing this anymore unless they feel they may have been exposed. We are wearing masks, and the N95 is, of course, the best mask to wear. The other thing that is very difficult when you have a large caseload or a large number of clients is avoiding back-to-back visits, but if all possible, avoid completing back-to-back visits, and that gives you time to wash your hands, sanitize, everything else you need to do between the visits, so you aren't spreading illness from one family to the next. And of course, you want to keep up to date on all your vaccinations, follow your agency's policies, practice self-care so that you aren't getting yourself run down. And then, because when you're run down, you're going to be more likely to pick up viruses and be sick yourself. But the most important thing is stay home if you're sick, and don't go to that visit if they're sick. It's amazing. We started this off with COVID, practicing, putting all these things into practice and writing a policy around it. And we realized that really we don't want to be spreading any kind of viruses, colds, stomach viruses, anything else So these are just really good practices for all kinds of viruses. Let's see, do I have, oh, there it is. There's the pre-screening. So it's really pretty simple questions that you can ask. And we do have some COVID questions in there, but we've also made it more generic. So it pertains to a variety of illnesses. So does anyone in the home have they tested positive for COVID-19 or is it pending? Has anybody, oh yeah, so does anyone in the home have a test that's pending? Has anyone recently been tested for COVID? And in the past 7 days, has anybody in your household been in contact who has COVID or been told to quarantine? In the past 2 days, has anyone in your home had a temperature, a fever, a cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing? And does anyone in your household have any of the following symptoms? You know, one of the things we found frequently is that we would get to a home and the parent would say, oh, my grade school child's home from school. They have a stomach virus and have been throwing up. But don't worry, they're in their room. Of course, at that point, the parent educator or the home visitor is just like, oh, I wish I hadn't come to the visit. I wish I'd known this before I got here. We would have rescheduled. So the pre-screening is really helpful to do. I'm also going to talk a little bit about check-in and check-out, and I'll touch base on with the check-in with families as to when it's a good time to conduct this screening. Alyssa, do we have results from that poll? Can you see them? Or maybe we haven't launched. Oh, is that a different poll? No, that's the illness poll.
So I don't see anything here yet. I'll double check on that, but I do see some responses in the chat around whether it's, asking a simple question in an email beforehand. Some people are saying that they ask maybe multiple questions beforehand. And then also just being able, oh, yes. So yeah, that's kind of just a few questions, it seems like is the most common here in the chat.
And so I think what I'm hearing is that people are wondering, when do we conduct this pre-screening? We check in with our families 1 to 2 days before we go to the visit. And that's when we do the pre-screening. And now we do this standard every time before we go to a visit. And it's not just during the time when there may be higher spread of COVID in the area. If the main thing that we really focus on is just asking, are people well in your home? And then we follow up with a few more questions. Frequently what our staff do, I have this in a JPEG form, they just send them a quick text message, just a reminder, look these over, let me know if there's anything to be concerned about before I come. The families are so used to it that now they know what the questions are. Does that answer the chat questions? Okay, I'm going to move into check out and check in procedures.
Yes, and
so,
really quick, Cami, thank you, Kelly. I obviously am not able to see exactly what is being seen, but she says that the poll results do show that 63% said yes, they do a pre-screen, 5% said no, 11% said we used to do this when COVID started, but don't anymore, and then 21% said sometimes they pre-screen.
Okay, great. So kind of a mixture there, but it does sound like a lot of people are using a pre-screen, so that's great. So this kind of goes into that check-in that I talked just a little bit about, but you'll see here at the top, it says check out and check in, because what we have is a policy about checking out of the office space or where you're working before you go to a home. So it's really critical for your safety that you have a policy. And I think we have another poll question there about, do you have a check-in or check-out policy within your agency? And it sounds like people were able to get to the other platform to navigate that poll, so great. So when you're working from your office, it's really important that you have a policy about advising your supervisor of your destination, the route taken, and approximate return time. And especially if you're going to be driving outside of town, you're going to be going into the country, the route taken is really critical. So you want to place your client's address and phone number in your network scheduling system so it's accessible by other staff. So if you don't return, they can also look there to see, well, where did my colleague go? She's not back yet from that visit and she should have been. And then once you come back to the office, let your supervisor know that you've returned from the visit. And you might be able to do that in an online system or just, sticking your head in their office and saying, I'm back. However, your agency has that system that you can do that. And it really varies by agency. So many personal or home visitors work from their homes, or they might work after office hours and go visit families in the evenings. We certainly have had a large increase of number of families that are working during the day, 2 parents that are working during the day. So that's really increased our evening visits. And of course, nobody's at the office, or you may return to your house after that visit. So it's really important that you have a separate policy and procedure for checkout and check-in if that's the circumstance. So you want to think about a designated family member or a designated person that you can advise of your destination, your route taken, approximate return time. And keep a calendar system that's accessible to your family, even if it's just writing on a refrigerator whiteboard, what your schedule is for the day, or maybe a Google system, a Google Calendar, something like that. But the other thing that's really critical is that you provide your supervisor's contact information to your designated family member. I had a husband of one of my staff members call me once and said, hey, my wife hasn't come back from this visit and she should have been back by now and I can't reach her. And so I was able to go into our system and look up where she was and what family. And I saw that she had put in there a family she hadn't told her husband about. She'd forgotten. He was like, oh, okay, she's got another visit. Okay, we're good. But I was very happy that he had my contact information. So the other thing that we always do, and this is also, it's not just to help to confirm the visit, but it's also for safety reasons. So the family is prepared for you to come. We check in with the family. We call or text the family 24 to 48 hours prior to the visit to confirm. And that way we know they're expecting us. So you want to confirm the information you're planning to bring and also the purpose of the visit. And that's important because it not only is good partnership with the family, but it also helps them to know what to expect. And then we also, because we're driving frequently, our staff members could be driving up to an hour to a family's home to visit them. And we don't want to get there and have them not there. And sometimes within that 24 to 48 hours, they might forget, or they might have some emergency come up and they forgot to notify us. So before we leave for that family, especially for driving a distance, we call or text them, just say, hey, I'm on my way. I should be there by 10 a.m. just so they know exactly what our time frame is for arrival. So do we have that poll results, Alyssa?
Yes, we do. So 43% said yes, they have
Great.
a check-in and check-out. 22% said no, 13% are not sure, and 22% yes, but it needs to be updated.
And I think that's always the issue, is getting those updates made because things change. So
yeah, and we had a question in the chat from Mary Hess. She asked if you could talk more about your online home visiting tracking system. Is there a specific platform you use?
Well, for parents as teachers, our platform we use is called Visit Tracker or Penelope. Those are the two systems, and they're very specific to parents as teachers. So I'm not really able to advise on other program systems. Does anybody else have different systems that you use that you could type into the chat? Are they able to unmute themselves and chime in?
Yes, if you guys can unmute, you can also do that as well. So I see someone says Outlook, it's color coordinated. Someone else noted that they have a visit tracker and it's just a simple sign out and sign back in. And then someone else has added, they add information to the calendar, which can be accessed at any time, I assume by other people in the organization.
That's great. And I do really like, I know a lot of programs use Outlook, and I think that's a really good system. Or they might have a Google Calendar that others can get on within their agency. So good. The other thing is, and this is a really critical thing for my staff because they are driving distances to see families at their homes. And especially in the evenings, I always have concerns about that. I will have staff that will drive even just to a staff meeting. It might take them an hour and a half to get to one of our staff meetings. And I'm always concerned when they leave, and I always think about their safety on the road. So some things just to keep in mind is you want to make sure you have proper vehicle maintenance and a full tank of gas. I remember one time almost running out of gas coming home from a visit. So emergency car kit, first aid kit, and a flashlight. Know your agency's procedures for car safety. Have a roadside assistance coverage and information about how to contact them. My assistant, I was out to dinner with my husband one night. My assistant called and she had a flat tire and had no idea how to get a hold of AAA because she didn't have her card with her. So I was like, oh goodness. So we actually left our dinner and drove to find her and help her. But she said, okay, I'll carry my AAA card from now on. Be sure to have clear directions to the home. If you're driving and you don't know where you're going, that can create a safety hazard. And then if you're driving out of the country, this is really important, but I live in Lawrence, and even just driving across town, I will see deer at the edge of town here in Lawrence. So watch for deer and watch for other animals crossing the road. One time I almost hit a cow driving home from a home visit, and I've almost hit turkey many times, but I've only hit a deer once, and that was my very first year on the job. So here's just a little slide that shows you some things you can put in your car for emergency car kit. And let's see. And then some safety tips for avoiding deer. Watch for the signage about the deer. When I hit the deer, I was in a deer crossing. Definitely. I saw the sign a little bit later, hit the deer. Use your high beams when it's dark out and be aware of the peak times. And then other tips for driving to avoid deer. Knowing the peak times, knowing the peak time of year, although we see deer at the edge of town in Lawrence all year long. If you see a deer crossing sign, slow down. 2 days ago, I was driving to my office, saw a deer crossing sign, and underneath that deer crossing sign was a dead deer. So pretty unbelievable. When you see one deer, you know there's going to be others, very likely. So it's important to slow down and look. Keep your brights on. Honk your horn if you see a frozen deer in the headlights. That would have helped me when I hit that deer, because that's what happened. And I didn't even think about that. And brake and stay in your lane. You can't avoid a deer. Don't steer, or don't veer for the deer. Don't veer for the deer. Oh, there it is. Don't veer for the deer. Don't swerve. The other thing to think about is upcoming weather and weather safety. So you want to check the road conditions for your route. Check the hourly weather predictions for your visit and travel time. And you don't want to be caught in a blizzard. I drove to a home visit it was an evening visit, and it wasn't snowing, but by the time I left, there was a blizzard and a really hard time getting home. So ask the family to have a path to their entrance free of debris and other hazards like ice and snow. And the other thing is that when the roads, when there's bad weather, you really need to slow down because of the road conditions. So allow plenty of travel time. I know when I'm late for a visit, I'm driving a little faster than I should be sometimes. And so when the weather's bad, you want to make sure you allow plenty of time. And then just other hazards or thinking about pets. So ask the family, this is part of our policies, is we ask the family to restrain pets during the visit. And while I love dogs and cats, the pets can be very distracting to the visit, but I've also been bit by dogs on the way into the home visit. So scan the area for dogs and other hazards as you're getting out of your car. And if after dark, ask the family to light your path or have a porch light on. I also carry my phone and I turn on my flashlight so I can see while I'm walking. Watch for just other things that might be in the path, and always have your keys and phone in your hand while you're walking, and pay attention. Don't be on the phone talking while you're walking. So, and that's it for me. So here's my contact information, and you have this PowerPoint and a PDF in the slides. So, any further questions?
If you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute. I am looking in the chat. One question that we did have that I guess backtracks a little bit is someone was asking, would Visit Tracker be more universal to all home visiting programs? Do you know of anything about that?
No, it's very specific to parents as teachers requirements. It just happens to have a calendar system on it.
Okay, perfect. Well, if you have any questions or anything comes up, I'll be watching the chat, but thank you so much, Cami. I think you're right. It's one of those things that it's always in the back of your head to update or to make sure and to kind of check it on. So it's great to have that reminder. So now we are going to have our second speaker. That is going to be Mary Dumler. So very excited to introduce her. She is a family support specialist with KCSL/Health Families program for 4 years. Prior to her employment with KCSL HF, Mary was employed at a foster care agency as a family support worker for 4 years, and then took a position as kinship support specialist for 10 years. During these past 18 plus years, Mary has experience in knowing how to stay safe and how to be aware of your surroundings while meeting a variety of families. Mary has a passion for working with children and families through home visiting. She has completed the foundations for family support level 1 and level 2 field integration assignments through HFA. So Mary, we are so happy to have you.
Thank you. And welcome to this home visiting safety session. Cami, that was excellent presentation and I learned a lot from that. So I'm excited about this opportunity to share with you some of the knowledge that I've gained through 18 plus years of home visiting. Some of you may work for agencies that families are court-ordered to participate in your program, and other agencies, it's voluntary for families to participate in your program. But no matter what, you always need to be aware of your surroundings and stay safe. Either way, everyone should always think about their safety and avoid potential dangerous situations. So I'm just curious if anybody wants to add in the chat box if their program is voluntary or if their families are court-ordered to participate in their program. And also, if you'd like to share, what are some of the things you should know before going into a home visit the first time you meet with a family? If you want to share that in the comments.
So looking at the chat, I have a handful of people who are saying they have both, but a large proportion who is saying that they are voluntary. voluntary seems to be a majority here, but there are people who say both, and then someone who references a DCF referrals as their primary. So yeah, it seems like voluntary is definitely the majority here.
Okay. Well, and if anybody would like to share, what are some of the things you should know before you go into a home visit for the first time?
And definitely feel free to unmute. I know that Mary would love to hear some voices today to hear about your experiences.
Well, and there's a couple of comments, but I always recommend that you know as much as you can before you go into that first home visit, such as, do they have a criminal record? Do they have a mental health diagnosis? Addiction issues?
I am always curious as to whether or not the families I'm with, if there's a gun in the home, or if there's a safety lock on it, or there's a term for that, I forget what it is. And just that area. And actually, gun safety has not been an area that's, hold on, my cat is being gun safety is not an area that I've heard a lot in safety trainings. And that would be something I'm interested in.
Yes, and we were to have a third speaker and she was going to cover that. I don't know if she's going to jump on here pretty soon. But yes, that's something to be aware of. And, scan your surroundings and, if you see anything unusual, you can always make an excuse to leave the home visit if you don't feel safe. I see a lot of good comments. Alyssa, do you see some of the comments that people are sharing for what they should know before they go into the first home visit?
Yeah, so I'll read some of those out. So, who else lives in the home, and not only that, but who else will be in attendance. I have someone who talks about making sure to pull up maps of the neighborhood so they can see where they're going, and where they can park, other ways to get out of the neighborhood, just really understanding like the visual piece, which thankfully with Google Maps, I think does a lot for us. Definitely how many people are in the home, kind of just really understanding the family structure. Let's see, there is someone who says that they do a drive-by before the first visit. So they are physically going through the neighborhood and really understand the layout of it, where there's, where they can park, what it looks like before they go in. Someone else, the last comment here is just really being aware of the exit. Related, being in the homes, just kind of once you're, I guess, walking up and you're first in there, kind of maybe that first eyesight of, where are the exits safety wise.
Those are great comments. Yes. Good things to be aware of.
Yes, I have another comment in here. It says history of domestic violence. So, looking a little bit into that background of the family.
Yes, and hopefully you have like a survey or some documentation for when the parent was enrolled in your program that you can read and kind of get a little bit of history on what's going on with that family. Another thing I wanted to talk about is what to wear when you go to a home visit. Clothing, shoes, you should dress comfortably and conservatively and wear shoes that you can run in if you need to run, or if a dog chases you, or you get in a situation where you've got to get to your car pretty quickly. You definitely want to have shoes on that won't cause you to fall or hurt your foot. Also, make sure that you don't take in bags. I think Cammie talked a lot about that too, but be aware of not having something that somebody can grab a hold of if you go into the home, if you're trying to get out quickly. And another thing is always have your phone with you when you go into a home visit, and make sure when you get into the home that your phone is available to where you can reach for it quickly if you need to, not in a bag where you have to dig for it and can't find it, but somewhere where you can access it quickly if you need to. One of the things we do here at our office is we have a code word that if somebody gets into a bind or needs assistance or needs the police called, we have our phones ready so that you can call somebody on your staff, and our code word is red folder. So if somebody gets a call and they say red folder, we just start asking questions, do you need help? Do you need the police called? And having that discussion with your staff and coming up with a code word, it keeps everybody safe in case of a situation that might come up. Also, sharing your calendar. We kind of talked about that. Cammie talked about this. Keeping your calendar up to date. Share it with your supervisor. We have a mark out board where we sign in and out, and always letting somebody know where you're going. And also when you're in the home, if you get a gut feeling that you just don't feel safe, go with your gut feeling and use an excuse to leave. Once you're in the home, and I heard a lot of these, there were several comments in the chat box about position yourself in the house where you're close to a door. Make sure that there's not somebody between you and the door in case you need to get out. And be aware of your surroundings in the home, such as smells. What do you smell? Is it safe? Do you smell, were they cooking drugs? Is there alcohol? Different sounds you can listen to, such as, is there talking in other rooms? Maybe somebody arguing? Are there other people in the house or pets that might be barking and possibly vicious? Also, if the client has odd behaviors, be aware of that. Do they seem like they're nervous or distracted by something? It could mean that they're either coming down off drugs or they're high on drugs, or maybe somebody in the other room is making them feel uncomfortable. And scan the room and look for unusual things such as drug paraphernalia or weapons. If you see anything like that, make an excuse to get out of the home. And I think Cammie talked about animals too. If there are animals, I've had to ask if they'll put them in their cage or outside while I visit, and they've been pretty good about doing that. But if they're aggressive dogs, you don't want them in the house while you're in there doing your home visit. So, does anybody want to share any experiences they've had with home visiting?
Mary, one thing that I know we used to always say to our staff, if you don't feel comfortable on a home visit, to take that we could pair them up with another parent educator. And one time in a basic home visitation training, someone, one of the participants said, well, that's great. Then you might have two injured or harmed home visitors rather than just one. And that's a really good point, that sending, going in pairs isn't always a good solution.
Right. That's a good point.
If it's not safe, it's not safe for either person going.
That's a good point.
So we have some people sharing in the chat. So Virginia shared some things I lived by as a home visitor was having hair up or out of the way, not wearing something around the neck like a lanyard or long jewelry. Don't wear flashy jewelry, just keep it basic. Always being on the lookout for out of normal or unusual things, items, or behaviors. And when in doubt, get on out. And then someone was saying they just shared last week they had a pit bull jump in their lap. It really scared her. Luckily, the dog was very tame. But definitely, I imagine going into homes, you don't really know that, so it can, I'm sure, be very scary initially, because you're never sure.
Right. That's an experience I had just recently too. I had a new home assigned to me and I went, and she had 3 dogs. Well, she had a large pen for 2 of them, but she said she couldn't put the 3rd one in the pen. So she held him by his collar, and he was a large, he was a large dog, and he lunged at me. She had to hang on. He was a big, strong dog, and she had to hang on to him during the home visit as he kept lunging at me. And it was a small area. So the next time before I went over, I asked if she could put the dogs outside or in in another room or something. And she was more than agreeable to do that. And I haven't had any problems with the dogs being in the house and loose. So.
I have a question for the participants, Mary.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if there's a safety concern, how many of the participants have a neutral spot they could provide the visit in? I know with parents as teachers at conference, they talked a lot about branding the terminology from home visiting away from the home and not including home in that terminology. We use the term more personalized visits. And I just, when we have a safety concern, sometimes we do have alternate places that we can meet with families that are safer and neutral sites. And I just wondered if the participants also have neutral sites or if they ever have that option.
Okay, I'm seeing some really great responses here in the chat. So someone saying that they use their organization's conference room, it's available, or at the rec center. Someone else is saying being able to use the public library or in the park, sometimes a room in a school district building, which their office is located in. Other people are saying, yeah, they can rent rooms from the library. There's a few small private spaces that can be used in the office. But, you know, someone does say that struggling in smaller towns, it can be difficult to find those places, but they always offer either meeting at the library or the school. Public libraries seems to be really popular. Someone else is saying her clients are primarily pregnant and postpartum breastfeeding moms. So if there's any concerns, they always offer to meet in the clinic to accommodate for that. But yes, it seems like people really enjoy libraries. They are really great. School buildings and parks. Someone did say that if possible, coffee shops, just if there is some privacy, but I'm sure that can be hard depending on the area you're in. And county health department also seems like an option.
And of course, privacy is an issue when you go to an alternate spot, and that's something to really take into consideration.
Our office covers some pretty small communities, and I know personally I've used city buildings. Just contact the city offices, and a lot of times they'll lead you in the right direction on where you can meet, and a private meeting room with the city or something, or the library.
We've had 3 issues just recently within our staff that prompted us to move to a different site for the visits. The first was large dogs that were uncontrollable. The second was bed bugs. And the third was black mold in the home.
And those can definitely be a health hazard.
We've also in the past had issues where concerns with other family members living in the home. And that was more personal safety than health safety. I think another issue we also had I'm just remembering this, was the driveway into the home. Was the home visitor could not get up the driveway in her vehicle. It was so treacherous. It was so steep and not graded well. And the family had offered to meet the home visitor at the bottom of the driveway and drive them up. And I said, no. No, you're not getting in their car. That's
Right.
a safety issue.
Gosh, that must have been a very steep incline.
Yeah. Rural families.
Well, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about was, and somebody had mentioned, you know, driving by the area and checking things out. That's always a good thing to do when you're on your way to a home visit for the first time, is to drive by and just look at the home and the surrounding area, you know, the yard, the neighbor's yard across the street, and kind of get a feel for what you're walking into. Observe the neighborhood, look at the house. Is there coverings over the windows? Do they have security cameras on the outside? I mean, a lot of people have security cameras these days, but you know, a lot of times drug dealers have security cameras. So you just have to be aware of that.
Tammy, I have a question for you. With the house, with all the steps, what did you end up doing with that parent educator? I have the exact same situation.
With the driveway,
Yeah.
they ended up meeting at a neutral site.
Okay. Yeah, especially with the weather and the snow and stuff. I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
The driveway wasn't even drivable in dry weather, so they had to use a 4-wheel drive to get to their home.
Wow.
And people think we live in flat Kansas.
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, just a little bit of an update. So we did have a third speaker, but unfortunately she is having connection issues with her internet, so she isn't going to be able to join us. However, we definitely want to encourage everyone to take the time to ask any questions, maybe about a situation they're experiencing, or share stories. I think it's really great not only to be able to learn from each other, but it seems like we have two experts in the room who might be able to offer any advice or suggestions for any situations right now with clients that might be difficult to navigate safety wise. So if it's okay with Cami and Mary, I definitely want to open it up to everyone to unmute and ask any questions or put something in the chat. Something that I know we have talked about a little bit is kind of there are differences between working in our rural areas versus our more urban suburban areas. So if anyone has any questions or any specific things that they can think of they'd like to chat about, I also welcome you to put those in the chat. And we'll do the best we can, the three of us, to see how we can answer and provide any support.
I heard you say something about you're wanting to know who is in the home, if they have a criminal record or mental health diagnosis. I'm curious to see how you go about finding that information before you arrive. Are you doing intake before you go?
With our agency, we have a parent survey done before the parent is enrolled in our program. So the person that does the parent survey, the engagement coordinator, will interview them and ask questions like that if they have a criminal background, if they suffer from any mental health issues or diagnosis. They ask about past addictions, current addictions. So as long as they're being honest, with their information, we can get that.
Thank
There are
you.
also sites you can go to look up if they're registered sex offenders. I don't have those resources right in front of me, but you can look up if there's a felony conviction offender living there. I can look at my full presentation, and I should have those. I'll try to get those and type them into the chat.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat asking, what is your suggestion for early Head Start or Head Start dealing with requirements to meet in the home? I'm not sure if either of you have encountered that in your line of work.
Can you meet outside in the yard? Is that a possibility, or do you have to be inside in the home? So outside is certainly safer in most circumstances.
Okay, I don't see a response to that, but I think that is a really good point. Thinking through if there are requirements, how can, thinking creatively to ensure safety, but trying to make sure you fall within those requirements. But Marty, if you would like to, feel free to unmute maybe to specify a little bit about what you're talking about. But yeah, I think that is always a good suggestion, but I know in Kansas we get both extremes of weather, right? It's not always feasible. So it can be difficult.
Hi, this is Lindsay Restivo. I'm just reading stuff too. So yeah, bed bugs, headlights, I was about to address that. I always kept, I'm a supervisor now, so I don't have to go into that many homes or I get, anyway, I'm the one who also said my staff can use me as an excuse to get out of any situation. Look at your phone and say, my supervisor needs me back in the office. I'm so sorry. Also, I keep a change of clothes, trash bags, lice spray, bed bug spray, all in the back of my car. When I was very young and first starting off in the field as a mental health case manager, I went into a home. And when I left, I walked back into the office. My boss said, please don't move. Don't go anywhere. She said, have you looked at your sleeves? There was literally, you could see lice from sitting on the couch on my sleeves. I had never experienced anything like that. So I always kept trash bags in my car. Also, we have pretty terrible weather here in Southeast Kansas, and I typically like to find where the tornado shelters are for my fellow coworkers. Cammie's nodding her head. Is that something you've done, Cammie?
No, but I have certainly had parents call and tell me they're canceling a visit because of the threat of storms and they were going to their in-laws for a basement. And there have been times, because my office is in a mobile home. So, and to get to our tornado shelter in our building is quite an ordeal. So I've had to think, what was I going to do if there was a tornado when I was at my office? But I think that's a great thing to add to my safety training. So I'm making note of that.
I'll go ahead and turn my camera on. Hold on. I've also had to do several things. One situation, I pulled up to a home and there was a lot of racially disparaging artifacts. I don't know any other way to say that. Everywhere. And I'm the mother of a biracial child. And I had to worry about my safety in that situation. And that was a really hard one for me emotionally, fearing for my own personal safety in that situation. I think there's just lots of things that in hindsight I would have done much differently. But even paying attention to artifacts or signage in the yard is something that can keep you safe. And that's why drive-bys are a good thing, because I hadn't driven by that home. In fact, I don't even know if I ask my staff to do drive-bys before they go, since we're so spread out. I always kept bottled water in my car. Arrest records are public. I check my family. Oh yeah, absolutely. We also check the, if we haven't heard from one of our families for a while, we look at the jail roster. I know that's terrible. We've had a lot of, here's one funny story and then I'll let somebody else talk. Okay, so again, I live in rural Southeast Kansas. I was on my way to a visit one day and a highway patrol zoomed past me, another highway patrol zoomed past me, a police car zoomed past me, another police car zoomed past me. And I was like, what in the world? There must be a wreck up there. Shortly after that, my phone rang. It was the mom I was going to visit. And she said, are you on your way here? And I said, yes. She goes, well, the KBI and everybody, they're searching for 2 inmates that got out and they can't find them. They said they're armed. She said, do you still want to come visit me? She lived out in the country where they were looking for these people. And I said, where are you and your little angel baby? And she said, well, we're going to go over to my Meemaw's. And I said, does your Meemaw have a gun? Because, she said, oh yeah, she has a gun. And I was like, I think I'm just going to turn around and head back, because here's the thing. Rural Southeast Kansas people are not afraid to go out and start shooting stuff. So once more word got around that there were people out on the loose that were armed and dangerous, it wouldn't prevent anybody from going out and chasing them, not just law enforcement. So I went ahead and turned around and went back home. But it's just the things we encounter as home visitors can be so interesting and changing, life-changing, and you never know what's going to happen. So I just thought I would hop on here and share a few things. I'm sure my staff will check me and be like, hey. So
Thank you.
I'd like to talk about the bed bugs because I'm getting questions about it. If you hire some sprayer company to come in and you live in apartments, they kill what's in your apartment, but some of them go to the next apartment. It just keeps going and it's very expensive. Bed bug powder is very cheap. We sell it for $2 a pound because we buy it in such big amounts, but I think you can get it in 10-pound bags at like Menards or places like that, and Home Depot. And we just take it, the powder is like talcum powder, so it takes very little to do it. And you can get the instructions online, I think, but you just put it like where your mattress is, where the indentations are, you sprinkle it in that, because when you get on the sheets, they go to that part of the bed. You put it around the post on your, where the frame meets the floor. You can put it around the edges of the room. You can put it in the shelves in your kitchen or any place like that. Any bug at all that crawls over it, it's going to scratch their outside and they dehydrate and die, or they eat it and trying to clean off their legs and they die. And it's safe for even babies because it's so tiny, a powder.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm Andy Fullerton. I finally got on. Can someone let me know if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I was just about
Okay.
to introduce you. Thank you so much. We're happy you can join us and share your expertise. So I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
So I just want to give you a quick background because I know we're running out of time, and I would rather hear stories and share that way. But my name is Andy Fullerton. I currently work at KCSL, Kansas Children's Service League, and I understand I've always worked for nonprofit, so a lot of the programs I have worked for, like Parents as Teachers, I've worked for the Kansas City, Missouri Health Department, and I've worked for Early Head Start, and now I'm at KCSL, yay! But I did want to share a lot of the things that the other two presenters have mentioned are great. Great things to go off of. And of course, I've always worked in the urban area, so I see a lot more activity. So one thing's, first off, when you're enrolling a family and everyone has their own set of questions to be asking, I've always come across some of those questions being how many people live in the home, so that way you're aware. Some of our applications are a little more detailed than others. For example, when I worked for Early Head Start, there was a lot of personal questions. Has anyone had a federal offense or something or other? And those are just things to keep in mind. Okay, well, this family, red flag. And so personally, whenever I did visits for those families, I would just generally, hey, what's going on? I would say, hey, I see baby John is on the floor. Is anyone else around? Or is anyone else going to join the visit? Things like that. So that way families can go ahead and say, oh no, dad's in the back or whatever. So if I hear a noise, I'm like, okay, well, dad's back there, or vice versa. If I hear the noise, I'm like, oh, somebody else here, do they want to join or something or other? You can do those things. But right off the bat, going into a visit, I would most recommend that, and even in all areas, that you put your personal items in the trunk. In the very back. Never, ever, ever take a purse in, because once people see those kinds of things, you're a sure shot for something to happen. I carry, those little things that you put on the back of your cell phone, your driver's license or a credit card or something that you can keep on hand. I just put that in my back pocket. I know that most of us carry two phones, a personal and a work phone, so one in each pocket, and then keys in hand. I agree with the going bagless. At times there are things that I do want to take to the family. Most of those times I make sure that it's items that I can leave there, so that way things don't come back with me. Also prepping for the visit. For example, I tend to wear jeans or like capri pants, things that if I sit on the floor, things can't crawl up there, which I have done. I've sat down and I've had little mice guests come right up to me. And it's a very hard thing to keep from screaming or saying something. But I've also been in other homes that are exceptionally clean. And I'll talk about the bed bugs and things like that in a minute. But I also want to say, when I worked for Early Head Start, we also had a code word, Ruby. Again, Ruby, red alert kind of word. And in the 10 years I was there, we never had a worker whose name was Ruby. So that was able to, if you're ever in a situation where you feel uncomfortable or you're actually being held against your will, you can let the people know or ask, can I call my office, or else they're going to be very scared. And if I don't show it back to the office in like 5 minutes, they're going to send the police, because that's our policy. You could, if they let you make the phone call and just say, hey, can you let Ruby know that I'm running late, or this or that, but make sure you mention the word Ruby. And that was always a good thing for us, because obviously that's red alert. And we always used, with Early Head Start, we had a sign in, sign out piece of paper. I personally wouldn't trust it, just because handwriting is an issue. People come back, scratch it off and things like that. So it's not clear. Currently here at KCSO, we use our Outlook. So you put the name of the family you're going to, the home address. Our system carries the phone numbers and things like that. My supervisor and my coworkers carry my personal cell phone, my work cell phone number, so everyone and anyone can contact me. So that, I feel that makes it safe. So on my work cell phone with Outlook, it's connected. I can put in the color coordinated if I have completed the visit or no showed, until my supervisor has tabs on me. Also, some of the things while you are in, parking, that's the other thing. Make sure that you park not in the driveway. If you must park in the driveway because of the way the road is or whatever, make sure you point outward and behind the person that is already there, because in an emergency, you want to be able to run out and get in your car. That another thing is, when I go to a visit, I carry my keys in my pocket. I don't have all the jingles and the extra tabs and things like that. For that reason, I have my house key and my car key, and I put it in my front pocket, so that way I know it's there. I tend to lose it anyway, like if I put it in my bag or whatever. So I hope that helps. When you go into the visit, whether it's the first visit or the 500th visit you've done with these families, make sure that your back is never open to an entrance or the front door. Make sure that your back is against the wall, so that way you're able to see what's going on and you don't have to keep looking behind you, just in case. We also, identification-wise, I would rather that I carry a photo ID saying I work where I work. And in my little that's attached to my keys, I have my driver's license and my work ID. So that way, if anything should ever happen, I have plenty of ID. And just a quick story, when I worked with Early Head Start, I did have a coworker who was doing a home visit. She had her little tassel with her tag hanging from it saying she worked for Early Head Start. Unfortunately, when cops come to raid someone's home, they don't take any chances. Everyone must go on the ground, which she was very upset about, and I would be too, but and she kept saying, I work for a government agency or a nonprofit or whatever it may be. At the moment, they're not going to care, but later on, after things have settled, the ID helps. What else? Also, you guys were talking about safety and during a home visit. if you're going bagless, great. Just remember your safety is number one. So if you have to get up and leave a cell phone or leave whatever it may be that you find important, whether it's a laptop or whatever, your safety comes first. The program is not going to mind that, you left it. Maybe you'll be able to go get it back. If not, too bad. Your safety comes first. I can't say that enough. Back to the roaches and bugs. Most of us are aware of CanCare. Some of the MCOs, Aetna, Sunflower, United Health, some of them, like United and Aetna, do provide some an amount of funds for I guess like roach control or mice control, whatever it may be, which is if you can call CanCare or specifically each MCO, whichever one it is, you can ask questions or maybe find a different resource through them. But also in Kansas City, Kansas, I think there was a resource, K-State something or other, I do not remember, it's been quite a while, that helped with cleaning supplies and or other services to help with those roast infestations. I can't talk now. Yeah, I think that's all I got.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, go ahead. I mean, like we've been doing, put them in the chat or feel free to unmute. I'm sure that, we have some time here. But yeah, I think that is a really good point. Definitely kind of being able to recognize if there are resources to help with those infestations or what that looks like to be able to kind of refer out in any way, which of course will change depending on where you're located. But yeah, definitely thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, if there are not any questions, let's see here. I believe either I am frozen or our speaker is frozen.
You're not frozen.
Yeah,
Perfect. Okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I think overall, I want to thank Cami and Mary, and definitely Andy as well. I know she's been doing her best to get on with us today. We will still hang around in the chat for now. But thank you guys for coming. And I really like this. One of the last comments here is always trust your gut. I think that as professionals, you guys live in this. This is what you do day in and day out. You know best. And so I think that's like a really great message is, trust your gut and really just remain cognizant of your own safety. And, that is important above all else. So thank you so much to our speakers.
Alyssa,
yes.
I thought of something else. We also say in basic home visitation training is no home visit is more important than your own life. And that's very important.
Yes, yes. Very, very well said. And always, I think, a good reminder, as you get into the work, it's always good to kind of go back to that. So I believe our speakers will hang around here for a little bit. For anyone who has any questions, I would like to unmute, but thank you so much for joining with us today. And if you have any questions or concern, reach out. Crystal, I know, is here in the background of all of our sessions helping, but we're happy to help however we can. So thank you guys for joining us today.
I got a lot of good information. I'm going to add to my training.
Yes, we're seeing lots and lots and lots of thank yous in the chat. So I will go ahead and end the recording right now.